Hello, and welcome to the pre-campus season podcast Behind the Desk. I'm Misal, and I'm going to be your host for the podcast session today. With me today, I have Akhilesh Tuteja. Akhilesh, who's the global leader of cybersecurity and also heads clients and market at KPMG in India. It's our privilege to have Akhilesh with us. Akhilesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Misal. Delight to be here.
Great. So Akhilesh, it's always inspiring to hear from you and have your stories, and I'm really looking forward to have this conversation with you. So directly to get into the conversation, Akhilesh, you have been in consulting for so long. I'm very intrigued to know that what really made you choose consulting at the first go, and what has also really made you stick to the role for so long, and you have been a successful leader so far.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. I've reflected on it many times, saying that how can I just be happy for last so many years doing consulting, and if I were to choose it again, I'll do the same. My first reason was that I hate to do the same thing over and over again. I think consulting is one profession where you can actually do 15 things in your lifetime, and maybe more than that if you can. So one is that every consulting engagement is new. Unlike the people who work in industry, they do change jobs, but there's a fair bit of monotony in terms of the type of industry, type of client, type of problem they solve. So that's the first reason. The second one is that there is always something new to learn, and consulting is not about just doing things. It's less about monotonous operational job. It's about problem solving. Clients come to us because we solve their problems, so all the time you have to learn new things. And the third one, I'll tell you on a real basis, I have not disclosed this secret to others, that your ability to make mistakes is very high in consulting. If you make mistake in the company, you might be kicked out. But if you're in consulting, just change your client and move on, and you can make more mistakes.
Great. So great to hear that, Akhilesh. So what I resonate with, it's dynamic, it's ever changing, and yes, the last thing that you said, if you do a mistake, you can always change a client and move on. Very interesting facts, Akhilesh. Thank you. Akhilesh, given this, we are doing these for students. I would really love to hear your views on when students prepare for these interviews. What are some skills that they should keep in mind so that they could have they can choose the right job and they could be successful in cracking those interviews?
Consulting interviews can be quite inconsistent because, as I said, that the job description isn't straight. You get to do many things. So what people who are looking for consultants are testing is the ability to learn. So most important thing is because what you know today may become irrelevant tomorrow. So how quickly can you learn is one of the big skill required, and that's what gets tested. The second thing which is a big skill required is the agility, because you have to change your position very quickly depending upon how the external environment has changed. It's about looking at new solution, new kinds of approaches to solve the thing. And I think the third one is to make sure that you're telling your story in a very compelling and meaningful way. So not only just knowing what the right answer, but telling that answer in a manner that others can understand and appreciate, I would say, is the third big skill required.
No, great. In fact, when I interview a lot of students when I go to university, these are some prominent things that we typically look for, and thank you for sharing that insight. Moving further from interviews, I also feel, Akhilesh, to have a very strong foundation really helps you build your career ahead. And I think foundations are formed with very small habits that we typically inculcate in our life. I have valued some of habits in my life which has really helped me. What are some of the habits that you would suggest students to keep in when they start building their career so that it really helps them shine in what they do in the coming times?
I think you're going to hear it from me a few times. The ability to learn, therefore being curious. So you won't learn just because you have to learn. So staying curious, being inquisitive is one of the big skill which I see people have. The second big skill, in my view, is discipline. It may sound counterintuitive. Well, I said that in consulting you tend to do different kinds of job all the time, but there's a sense of discipline about being on time, finishing tasks on time, meeting deadlines, being able to manage multiple conflicting priorities. So the whole sense of discipline around time, discipline around your own activity is a very important thing. And another thing which is very important is that how do you learn without making mistakes? So which basically means that you don't have to do it yourself. So can you learn from others' experience? And the easiest one is to read books. Sometimes it's also watch maybe podcasts like this so that you can excel in your interview. But it's also about asking questions. I actually see that there are fewer people who ask questions, because asking questions sometimes can get associated with lack of knowledge or feeling vulnerable, and that's something which I suffered myself, and I can share as a personal insight with the group that it's important to ask questions, because you can really eliminate a lot of time wastage and learn faster.
It's really good to hear that, Akhilesh, because many a times when I interact with students, they always fear to ask those questions. And if you as a leader say that it's a very important habit to be inculcated in consulting, I'm sure it's going to encourage students to do that more. Having that clarity without asking those questions are difficult to get. So Akhilesh, if we talk about the world is changing faster than ever, the world has never been so fast paced, and we say that's going to be furthermore faster from here. So what are certain technological changes or trends which have been changing so far that we should let our students know that they should keep in mind while preparing for jobs or interviews or to be successful in life?
In the last 25 years I've been in consulting, I have seen several shifts. It's no longer what it used to be. In fact, no longer it is true that having knowledge makes you a better consultant, because knowledge has become truly democratized and available at any fingertip. But the one big shift which I've seen is the use of technology. In the past, technology really helped businesses make them efficient, but now technology is changing the business model. So many years ago we used technology to do things fast, but today our clients are using technology to disrupt their competition, staying ahead of the curve. So really understanding what I call the truly business-centric technology makes a big difference. It's not about knowing technology for the sake of technology. So that's the first big thing which I would say. The second trend which has become mainstream now is that in the past, consultants were people who advised you and walked out. That's no longer true. So now the clients need a consultant who give you advice, implement the solution for you, and also operate it for you. So it's no longer people don't pay me money for just telling them what to do, because I think that Google can tell them, but it's about how to do it, but actually do it and make it run. That's another big shift which I've seen in consulting. And the last one is, which is always the case, but now a lot more important, is that how much do you understand my industry? So no longer is it enough for you to be the expert in your chosen area, but you need to be the expert in chosen area in the context of my industry. So those are some of these big shifts.
Great. Akhilesh, pardon me for asking this, but you just said that technology has been changing. Now, we also see technology is the one which is enabling those changes, and it's so fastly changing that today I acquire a skill and tomorrow it becomes irrelevant. So what's your advice to students that how they can keep up to these technological changes and don't lag far behind? Even for jobs which are not technology oriented, technology is now coming in that field. So what's your advice for someone like who's not tech savvy to stay relevant in this space?
The good news about today's technology is that you don't need to be the expert under the hood to know how it works and how to apply it. It's like saying when 100 years ago you bought a car, you needed to be not just a driver but also a mechanic, because it'll break down and you'll have to fix it yourself. Today's cars are like self-driven cars, and therefore today's technology also self-drives. So as long as you know broadly the concept of how it works and how you apply it to that need, I think is very useful. But the question which you ask is very relevant, that how do you stay updated, because things change very fast. So of course I talked about learning through reading, learning through videos, learning through other mechanism of working with experts. But curious mind comes back again on top of my list. But the other thing which I think is dirty your hands a little bit. Today's technology is so easy, self-paced and self-used, is that even the CEOs can actually dirty their hands and learn a bit about that, because Gen AI, as you've seen, is much easier done yourself than to be delegated. The other advice I will have is try and learn through diverse mechanisms. So if you learn only in the area which you operate in, you might just hit because you might already know, but how do you create diverse interest? And the last point I would say about how do you remain relevant in technology world is to experiment. And it's okay if you fail, but if you only try to say that I will learn not by experimenting, it might be hard battle to crack.
Absolutely, absolutely. Akhilesh, changing a gear a little bit, moving into students and understanding their psyche and state of mind while they prepare their journey from campus to corporate. We've seen a lot of students asking these questions or also struggling initially when they make a shift from campus to corporate. What are a few advices that you would want to give them, or few recommendations that you will suggest that they should keep in mind while they plan their transition from campus to corporate?
Campus to corporate journey can be daunting, and if you plan it well, you can actually come out as a winner. There are few things which one has to learn on top of what you already know, and there are some which you have to unlearn and relearn. So those which you have to learn, which you already do, is, as I talked about, is how do you build the sense of dependence? How do you become more reliable is important, because people in consulting industry particularly would love you if you can deliver outcomes, deliver on time, be disciplined about certain things which I mentioned. One great example is to do an internship, because this is like saying your learner's license. So before you go on to the wide world, you experiment in a controlled environment. So getting an internship is a great way to learn before you go out. But one other thing which I talked about is unlearn and relearn, is that the principles which unfortunately we are taught in education system are counterintuitive compared to when they are corporate. For example, when I was in school, I learned that the best way to grow is to be on top of the class. So which meant that I ended up competing with my friends. If you come with that same mindset, I think you will fail before you start. The corporate mindset is not about being individually smartest, it's about being collectively smartest. So how do you get out of the thinking of I need to be better than my peers versus we all need to be collectively as a team? So that's one, is the ability to behave, act and learn and operate in team is very important. The second thing which one has to unlearn is that the education system forces you to think within the box. You try and say, okay, this is the curriculum, this is the syllabus. I think the corporate world is all about thinking out of the box as to how do you expand your horizon, try things which you have never done. And then the third one, which I think is important, is in the corporate life, is strategic thinking. So think a level higher from where you would, and I think those will make you a better and a smarter person sooner. I'm sure you will get there, but it might just fast track a bit.
Great. Very, very lovely and beautiful advice, Akhilesh. The example that you draw from being top in the class, in the world of corporate, it's all about being collective and not being in the top there. So absolutely very, very important for students to keep in mind. As we come towards the end of the podcast, Akhilesh, one last question, and this is one of my favorite. One is, while you have given so many advices, one is one piece of advice, suggestion, recommendation, whatever you want to say it, you would want to give the generation today passing out from college to keep in mind, whether it could be to make them successful or a great human being or a great entrepreneur, whatever. What is that one piece of advice that you would love to pass on to them?
I would have said hard work, but I know that may be misunderstood, because I do believe that people who are now coming into the corporate world are definitely more smart working than what I was at when I joined the campus, when I joined from the campus. But the advice which I will give is being patient and look at the big picture. Many times I see people in a rush and thinking for that quick win and getting out there very, very fast. I'll just tell you a simple example that a zebra's kid can run in 45 minutes after birth. So if you are born out of a zebra, you will run into the world in 45 minutes. but a human child takes about 9 to 15 months just to walk. Now, that process of learning to walk makes humans what humans are, which is the smartest species on earth, which is all about cognitive development. Science has proven that the amount of time kids take to learn through their parents and through this facilitated learning helps them develop their brain, muscles, coordination, and many other things. So if you're in a hurry, sometimes I see people, I think, yeah, they will become better zebras. But if you want to become a smartest human, I think, well, I'm not saying that be behind the curve, stay ahead of the curve in your pack, but don't be always very impatient. Definitely look at the big picture.
Great. I think it's a beautiful advice, and the analogy that you've drawn in, Akhilesh, is beautiful to explain that. Akhilesh, this brings us to the end of the podcast. It was lovely having you on the session. Like I always say, there's something that we always draw when we are having a conversation with you. But thank you so much for sparing time with us.
Thank you so much for having me on this one. Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap for today's podcast session. I hope you found this session insightful and engaging. Stay tuned in for such similar insightful episodes. Until then, we meet again. Thank you and goodbye.